Hello everyone and welcome back to the Game Zone Quick Hotfix. This is How to Train A Speedrunner, and tonight we have a great show for you. Before we jump into it, just a few quick reminders. AGDQ 2023 Online will be January 8th to 15th. The games list for the first submission period is out now, so you can go take a look at that. The second submission period for games released after September 1st is going to be November 6th through 12th. You can visit gamesdonequick.com for more information about that. As well, on October 31st, which is going to be Monday, right? On the 31st, we have a Halloween Spooktacular, which is going to be hosted by Smooth Operative and Ecdysis. So that's going to be exciting. Be sure to check that out. With all that said and done, we're ready to go here. We've got a gamer here, and they're ready to show off Star Wars Battlefront 2. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, honestly. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been excited to see to learn this game for a while, so it's going to be exciting to have it on the show. Do you have anything you kind of want to talk about before we get into it, or do you want to jump right in?
I do have some notes that I've written down just for like prefacing stuff before we jump into actually playing. But other than that, should be good to go.
All right. Well, you can go ahead and start with that if you want.
All right. Obviously, this is the 2017 version of Star Wars Battlefront 2, EA's kind of remake of the original. I'm a super big nostalgic fan of the original, which is a big part of why I chose to speedrun this game. And I'm a super big Star Wars nerd and fan. We're obviously going to be doing the campaign. There's not too much to say about the structure as far as like multiplayer or like shooter campaigns go. It's pretty basic. We're going to be going through... There's 13 missions in total. They're pretty objective-based, going from mission to mission. But, yeah, honestly, we can load into it. We're going to click Restart Campaign here because you unlock abilities throughout the campaign. So restarting it just gets us like a fresh campaign from the very start with no abilities unlocked. And then difficulty, I do have to explain this because there's 3 different difficulties in the game. We're going to be doing Explorer, which is the easiest one. Because it's the most popular, it's the easiest, but and definitely the fastest. Because the difference between the difficulties, the only difference seems to be this strange adaptive damage resistance that they give you based on how much health you have remaining. And Explorer gets about 90% damage resistance if you're under about 50% health. So you're going to see us take a ridiculous amount of shots, and we're basically going to take pretty good advantage of this and run past basically every enemy that we don't need to kill. The other difficulties have a lot less drastic amount for some reason. I'm not quite sure why, but Soldier, you die in about 4 shots, and Special Forces, you die in about 3, which is a massive difference to Explorer, which we're going to be taking a lot of shots. We're going to look basically invincible for a lot of segments. But the other difficulties, honestly, could have very different strategies because some segments have a lot of enemies, which is, it would lead to very different strategies because you die quite fast on the other ones. So I haven't tried to run the other difficulties myself, but I've honestly been tempted because it would be a lot of fun. So, in the first mission, the mission durations range from about 5 to 10 minutes. And there is a couple shorter ones mixed in though, like less than 5 minutes. So this is just a little intro sequence. Timer starts usually, well, it always starts when you put in your first input here. When the shock thing appears on screen, you can press a button to shock with the droid. Wish I could, but we don't have the droid's access. Also, if you have any questions in chat, I can try to answer them as we go. I'll try my best. So yeah, as soon as you shock this guy, as soon as the bar on the bottom of the screen, so the timer will start then. And now, something I'm going to explain really quick, even though this is a pretty quick part. So, this droid movement, for some reason, this campaign has a lot of different aspects mixed in. So we're going to see us do a lot of different small things. Nothing major, but this droid is only for the first level. But for some reason, it moves incredibly slowly when you're going up and down and then left and right. So I'm basically going to be doing as much forward movement as possible and then using space and crouch to go up and down. Because it's a little optimization, but it's not much. And then also, as we do these little hacks here, that we have to do to be able to get through this vent. You want to position the droid as much to the middle of that socket as possible, because it takes a little cutscene to move him around. So instead of using A and D here, we use our mouse because it is faster. And then for some reason, when you're in first person, there's no cutscene to doing the hacks, so you can just instantly do them. Now we're going to do a cool little skip here. Usually it wants us to hack this door, but if you move fast enough, you can get underneath it. We actually... There you go. You can possibly die there. It's at the start of the run, so it's not really too important, but sometimes you will die. But once you're in the hack cutscene, you're perfectly safe, so... And then here, we just hold space, because the mouse movement's bad, and then spam F. And now this is a big room where we have to get to the other side, but we're going to take a pretty direct path and use some clever terrain blocking of the vision so that they don't spot us. You can sometimes get spotted here. It's a little inconsistent, and you can die if you get spotted. But again, it's at the start of the run, so it's not super important. So you need to be able to get that hack to be able to go through here. And then spacebar again, because we don't want to use our mouse. And then hack this. And then again here, we're just going to look straight and then hold crouch instead. And then now the droid part is over, and we will never be playing as the droid again, which is very strange. But we will be using the droid to hack things quite often, because now we're playing as Aiden, which you play as a couple different characters, actually. But this hack mechanic, we will be using the droid for. So you're going to have these little hack things that appear. And the closer that you are to the hack thing, the faster it'll initiate. Because when you press it, he'll fly over to it, and it'll fly slowly. But if you're right next to it, you want to position yourself whenever possible, so he just instantly goes into it. So you're going to see me run past this enemy here, and then jump here and just spam the hack, because we want to get to as close to it as possible. And you'll see us take a lot of damage, but then now we take like 3 damage per shot, which is pretty ridiculous. And then now, this is something I'm going to preface as well, and just pause here to explain. This is going to be something that we're going to be doing quite often. You can call it like a checkpoint reset or resetting from checkpoint. We basically force the game to reset us from the last checkpoint that we've triggered. And this comes in very useful because it helps us skip a lot of things, because you tend to trigger the next checkpoint before you would assume that you would. So like right here, it wants us to go and grab. So where I'm standing here is usually safe to reset, but you can go a little further in the hallway just to make sure. But it wants us to pick up this gun, and it'll do a little animation. So it saves a little bit of time just to do it here. But there's some major ones later on. So we want to place them as close as we can. And there's one guy here we kill. That part's kind of important, because if you miss those guys, there's two people that come out there, and they actually see you, and you need to clear all the enemies that see you before you can interact with this terminal in here. Okay, listen, bad shooting. But see, if those enemies in that last room had spotted us because we missed a couple shots, then we wouldn't be able to interact with that, and it would take forever for them to reach us or kill them. So you kind of have to adapt if they spot you and just shoot them before you hack that first door that I hacked back there.
Purge complete. There's nothing for the rebels to learn.
But this level is honestly quite fun to speedrun. It's pretty optimized compared to the other levels, and there's a lot of different aspects to it with the droid movement and the resets. So right here, we're going to run past these enemies. And then another interesting mechanic, which really does not show up very much later on, is this little door thing here. So you can shoot this door panel to close the door. And for some reason, this door opens very fast if you do so, but only if the droid is in the slot before you shoot the panel. If it's not in the slot before you shoot the panel, then it's real bad. It takes like 15 seconds to open. We shocked those guys there because for some reason, that guy that was running off to the side, he runs through the wall and appears in this hallway ahead of us, which blocks us for some reason. So we shock him with the droid, which is a little ability you can do with the droid. And then now we don't need to kill these enemies, but it can be annoying if they're constantly shooting at you and there's potential for you to die, but we're waiting for this door to open, so there's not really much to do here. But, so about 8 seconds after this, it'll open one more time, and there's a clip we can do through the thing, if you crouch and melee, you'll go underneath the door and pop out on the other side, because you can't actually like be crouching when you melee, and then you go back down into a crouch position. So it's a little bit of a glitch we take advantage of there. And that's the end of Cleaner. It's honestly a really like fast-paced, quick level. It's one of the shorter ones, but it's honestly really fun to speedrun, and just by itself is fun to run. And now, since that's at the end of each level, we're gonna have these like little cutscene bits, which are loading screens. So obviously these don't count for time without loads. So you just wait for them to be able to skip them. So something I didn't mention actually, which is my mistake. There's a couple different variants of the resetting from checkpoint, which we're going to do, which I'll explain when we get to them. And this is another one. So like I said at the beginning, there's abilities that we get. So as soon as we start this mission, Battle of Endor, we want to reset, because we can now equip an ability immediately. And this, you're only going to see me really equip two different things, which is the Vanguard, at least in Explorer. In the higher difficulties, you might want to equip some other stuff, because there's some stuff that keeps you alive. There's some stuff that can be useful for taking out lots of enemies, which you'll have to do on the higher difficulties. But this Vanguard is a shotgun that when we activate it, it gives us an incredible amount of movement speed for no real downside. So whenever we have a chance, we want to equip that, but it's also, you have to weigh up the positives of like, you have to go into this menu to equip it. So, and then also we're going to equip the TL50, which is the other thing we're going to equip a couple times, which is just a really strong gun, which is useful when you have to kill a lot of enemies very quickly to progress to the next point. So then, now we can actually start playing the level. So we pop the Vanguard here, so you can see we move quite a bit faster with running. You kind of just want to shotgun those two guys, and then you want to throw this grenade, because there is two groups of enemies. There's one here, one to our right, and you have to clear both of them to progress. But the enemies here, usually if you stand here and try and kill them all and shoot them before you move off to the ones to the right, you just waste a lot of time by standing here and shooting them. Where instead, if you throw this grenade, even if you don't get it exact, I can actually reset just to explain this a little bit better. Because even if you miss, it's not that big of a deal as long as it hits near enough to them. But I usually aim right under between this branch and this rock as you're running down the hill. And it usually hits pretty consistently with their pathing. So if you get that red marker, you know you killed one. And then you just run over to these guys and you try and take them out as quickly as you can. And there's a little bit, this is probably the second most inconsistent level. And see, these guys are making our way to her, or to us. And this is something I should explain as well. We're going to use these, the TL50 has an alternate fire, where you can shoot these little blue balls. I call them blueberries. And they basically do like an AoE explosion around them. And we're going to use them for a couple different things, but it's really useful for long range killing. So you kind of just want to kill those two as fast as you can. You can sometimes get them with one blueberry, which is nice. And then you want to run over to this third group that you have to kill. And these guys aren't too important to kill quickly, honestly, because there's one enemy that you seem to have to wait for regardless. They just take a lot longer to spawn. They can either spawn up here and walk around or there. But now once there's no real enemies left, I sit here personally, but you don't have to sit anywhere specific. And you want to look right here because there's an enemy that spawns behind this panel, and you want to basically look for the silhouette of his gun. And we are going to be charging up a blueberry so you can see his gun there and kill him as quickly as soon as he spawns, because it's a little AoE. And now that's something that I didn't say, but before you run into that checkpoint, for some reason, you want to pop your scan ability, which is on Q on PC by default. But it usually scans for enemies. But she says a voice line when she does it. So when you walk into that checkpoint, you skip other voice lines that take a while before you can progress. And now we want to walk up this hill as fast as we can, because we're going to use this a couple times throughout the run where we will actually walk slower than the NPCs behind us. So they're going to push us forward, basically. You can sometimes get a boost from that guy in front of us, but it's I don't think it's possible to get that far because he does a bit of curves and he's moving so quickly. But as long as you're ahead of this guy behind us, then you're basically got as much time out of it as possible.
Yes, sir. We'll contact you.
So it's not too hard. You can just kind of boost forward by him. And then now we want to pop our Vanguard here as well because we move a lot faster with it and we're just running to the next objective. We're going to take a little bit of a detour here. It can be a little, this terrain isn't super nice to run up, but you can jump up the first log and then jump up this one. And then there's a squad up here on the left that you kind of want to just throw a grenade. It's not super important, but they follow us to this next group and they kind of mix in with this group ahead, which isn't great. Now this bit is very inconsistent. I'm just going to try and do it as best I can here. Basically just want to kill all this first group and then kill these two here, which see there was only one, which is, oh, there it is. You want to grab his rocket launcher while you wait for some more enemies to spawn because we'll need that later. And then I usually pop my scan here just to find the enemies easier, and you just want to kill these guys as quickly as you can. And see, they ran up here, which is super inconsistent. Ideally, you want them to run down this path directly in front of you because then you can kill them quite easily and then go back to our right. Because for some reason in this situation where we need to kill all these enemies to progress, there's always one enemy that spawns behind this tree on our right, which you kind of know when he spawns, you're done. But so if they spawn here, it's a lot easier. You can run back and forth, but we got a little inconsistent. That's why the scan is nice, just to know that they're over there. Now we should be good here. No, I think there's one enemy left. Yeah, so that guy was not there. Now that guy's there. That's the last enemy there when he spawns there. So now we can progress. We're going to pop our Vanguard again just to run as fast as we can. Now we need to kill these two officers here. This one, easily just kill with a grenade. Pretty easy. They have a pretty big blast radius. And here we're going to switch to the rocket launcher and shoot it while we jump, just to save some time. And then now our Vanguard will be on recharge, but it doesn't really do that much while you're falling and stuff. So, and we'll need it for this next part. So we just keep running. And we're going to want to throw a grenade here just as we run. I usually line it up about there as you run past this little right, ledge there. Line it up about there as I'm running and throw it. I might miss it because I paused, but no, it has a pretty big blast radius. Now we want to run over here. This is important because you want this walker to run out in front of the platform. It's a little inconsistent. This is the second kind of big inconsistency here. The walker has to die before you can progress, and enemies will keep spawning until it dies, and you have to clear all the enemies after the walker dies. So you want to kill it as fast as possible, but the rocket launcher takes ages to recharge, so we can't rely on just the rocket launcher. But there's a gun on top of the platform to our top left, which we're going to take advantage of, but we need to kind of lure it in front of it. And this seems to be the fastest, most consistent way we have. So for some reason, the heavies don't respawn, so you want to kill that heavy just because he won't respawn. He's one of the enemies that won't. And then you just want to kill these enemies as you progress up to here. And now see, the walker walks in front, so you usually just shoot the rocket launcher and then aim at it. Now, sometimes you can kill this in one burst of the gun, which is because the walker has a weak point on the back side of it, which you can take advantage of sometimes. But if you don't, it's not that big of a time loss. You just wait for the gun to recharge, do it again. And then now you want to pop your scan and just try and kill as many enemies as possible and try and get them all done. So that way we can progress. So the scan is really good for target acquisition, and we have the TL50, which is super useful.
The platform is ours.
So.
Get to the lift.
And then this next part isn't too inconsistent, but it can be a bit inconvenient sometimes. We want to walk up this platform to our right because for some reason it seems to manipulate the AI to be in better positions when you walk up to the right instead of the left. We want to pop our Vanguard just for a little bit of movement speed. We can grenade that guy just so we don't have to worry about shooting him. And then blow up this container just so we don't have to aim at that guy. And now we want to get into these TIE fighters, but we can't get into our TIE fighter until our teammate Dell gets in his. And he seems to not want to get into his TIE fighter until all the enemies in front of him are dead, which is strange. I mean, it might be because he doesn't have the damage resistance that we have. So maybe that would make sense. These enemies aren't in his way, though, so we don't have to worry about that. Now we just wait here. And so as soon as Dell gets in, we can get in as well. So.
Starfighter secured. See you up there,
And this is just like a little animation, so. And then next is the first flying segment, which is honestly quite fun. I enjoy them. Well, there's a couple levels which will have some more flying. This is not too long of a segment. Just Del is quite annoying, and we will see some more Del annoying things in the future. So we also have abilities in our ship. Right here, it wants us to follow Del, but we don't have to. It's basically just like a winding path that he goes, but we're going to take as straight of a route as possible without going out of bounds, because when you go out of bounds, it slows down your ship. So that isn't ideal. So I can't really explain how to do this part super well, because I usually just use kind of like muscle memory in terms of where to look. But you kind of just get a feel for it and can remember which debris to look for to take like as straightest route as possible.
The Corvus was damaged by the Death Star explosion. Engines are down, but the crew is making repairs.
So
Rendezvous coordinates from the Admiral.
Just kind of follow along, basically.
just basically just a straight line, and once you kind of get used to it, it's pretty easy to remember. So we're going to that ship over on our left, and as soon as we get past this thing here and turn left, we can basically just head straight towards it, because it'll be no more out of bounds areas or anything. This next part is, honestly, you can do this quite fast, because we have to kill 3 groups of bombers and a group of TIE fighters. So usually I slow down as soon as I reach the top of this, because TIE fighters spawn in. It doesn't tell us to kill them yet, but you can kill them before. And now the bombers will spawn. This is the first set, which is usually pretty easy to kill. You can just shoot this one. And then we want to ability the second one, because it kills it quite fast. And then you want to speed up while you're killing this third one. And then as soon as it said slow down and turn right, it's kind of just, it's very like flowy, that bit. You can just flow from bomber to bomber once you get the rhythm down. So it's not too difficult. You want to speed up on that last one, and then you can just turn bottom right, and you end up right in range to kill these as well. And then as soon as this last one's die, it'll trigger the ending sequence. You want to kill the one in front first, because sometimes if you're too slow, or not even that slow really, this guy will automatically crash into that pillar sometimes, which is just free time to save. So, and then this is all just talking, which you can't speed up. So you want to kill the bombers as quickly as possible, so this triggers and just goes through. There's a couple segments like this in the game where you just have to wait for dialogue, which has been unfortunate. I have tried playing in a different language to see if that speeds it up, but sadly it doesn't seem like it does. So, and that's the end of the second level, which is honestly one of the longer ones. So level usually lasts like, but you can definitely lose some time there, and that's okay, because that level is quite inconsistent. Like, it's not really worth worrying about too much. So Cleaner can be quite consistent the first level. Battle of Endor, not so much. So this is the third level, Dauntless, which is going to be a lot of flying, but a little bit of running as well. Here it's important to instantly shoot your torpedo. I actually messed it up because now the lock-on doesn't quite work properly. So we want to kill this thing as fast as possible, and you want to use your quad cannon kind of about as you're about to overheat your gun, because there's an overheat mechanic for pretty much everything in the game. When you overheat, you just have to wait for it to cool down. But for some reason, the quad cannon takes a little bit to charge up, so you can use the cooldown of your gun to charge up the ability, so you can kill this thing as fast as possible. And now I paused because we're going to do the third variant of resetting from checkpoint, where we are going to die on purpose, because when you die, there's a little bit of a delay before you die where mission objectives can still progress. So we're going to be dying on certain segments. It's mostly useful on TIE fighters, but there is a couple times where we die on purpose just on foot. But so this Corvette is going to explode, but we're going to die while it explodes. So we progress to the next objective while it's exploding instead of waiting. So you can see the text at the bottom progressing.
Yes, sir.
And so now we're on the next objective, and we didn't have to pause the game or wait for the thing to explode. So it saves a bit of time dying on purpose there. And now it wants us to destroy these things as fast as possible. For which, this is my route, but honestly, you can do it however you like. Where you just fly to that one, you can kill that one quite easily, and then use your ability to kill this last one. And we're going to die on purpose here again, because it's quite useful as when you're flying, because you can see the new objective pops up, and then now we can do this. Now this part is, there is a lot riskier strat you can do, which saves like 5 to 10 seconds, honestly, but you're not going to want to do that for any percent because it's very inconsistent. And honestly, I don't think anybody's quite sure exactly why it doesn't work properly. So it wants us to follow Haas there, our teammate, and defend him, but there's no more enemies that spawn. So we're basically just waiting for him to get to this point in front of us. But if you get there before him, he rubber bands and speeds up really quickly to get there. So we kind of take a pretty cool route where we fly in the tunnel where he's supposed to go, and then we fly out the tunnel where I'm going here. It's not too important to like get here super quickly, but the faster you get here, the faster he should get here in theory. And then we're going to fly through here at a slow speed because the timing is kind of important. And then loop back around here, and the enemy will spawn right in front of us. We can instantly kill. Now, as soon as you kill that enemy, you can technically die to get to the next objective, but it's very inconsistent whether you get it or not. And if you die and don't get the next objective, then you start from the last checkpoint we died at, which is a long time. It's a waste. So there is a safe strat where you wait for her to finish this voice line here. As soon as that voice line subtitle disappears from the bottom, you can die, and it's pretty much, I've never failed this. You can see when it says, I'm boarding the enemy ship, that means you know you're good. And now you're on the next objective. But if you mess that up, it's pretty frustrating. So it's usually good to just wait for the rebel voice line.
Yes, Commander.
Now we need to kill the X-Wing that's flying, and then 3 ships that are on the ground as quickly as possible. I did it a little bit slower there just to explain, but... And then now we land inside the ship for a small on-foot segment. So we have our Vanguard equipped by default here. Sometimes you start the mission with certain abilities. We also started with that Disruptor, which like just stuns everybody, which is kind of just nice to do to get them out of our way. Just so we can run through. Now you're going to see us take a lot of hits here for the first time. We're going to kill a couple enemies while we wait for the door, but after that we're just going to ignore them. Run through. You're going to want to use your Disruptor here, though, because sometimes you can take a lot of damage because there's 2 heavies and a turret there. And you just want to run through here. You want to shoot at this guy, because as soon as he's disrupted, you can start this hack here, which is just a waiting segment. So you want to start that as quickly as possible. Now, these enemies we do actually need to kill, because they can stop the hack at the top of the screen by shooting the droid or disrupting the droid. And if they do that, then you lose a lot of time just for no reason. So it's not too difficult if you're standing near the droid, because if you're standing near the droid, they'll shoot at you instead of at the droid. So as long as you're nearby and just killing them as quickly as possible, you usually don't get disrupted here. So you just want to kill these. And now you do want to kill these heavies. This part's a bit strange as well, but I think killing these heavies is important. That's the current like known strategy, because we're going to destroy the power core after this hack is done, but for some reason it doesn't let us destroy it as quickly sometimes. So we're going to shoot that thing and it starts sparking, but sometimes it does it a lot faster than others. So the theory right now is that it's linked to enemies being live. As soon as it starts sparking, you just want to shoot it and then destroy it as quickly as possible. And now we have to do this segment again over on the other side.
Second cell is all yours, Commander.
So we do a little, that's not like tiny optimization, not super important, because like I said, at the first level, the closer the droid is when he starts the hack, the less like fly time he has, basically. So we just move our back to the hack point, which is kind of nice. And this is just the same as the last one. This one's a bit easier because for the last one, there was all the enemies when you ran in the room as well. So there was a lot of enemies going on. But this is basically just the same thing. Like, As long as they don't shoot the droid, you're perfectly A-okay. And then the theory is that like being able to destroy the power cores is linked to the enemies, but it's strange sometimes. So right there, we were able to shoot it quite quickly, honestly. But see, there's still enemies still alive, so I'm not really sure how that works, honestly.
2 down. I have an idea for the last
There's honestly, this game hasn't been like super extensively run. Don't get me wrong, there's been some dedicated people who have done a lot of the foundation of this run and stuff before I even started playing it, and huge props to them. But when I started playing the game, I was still able to find a lot of cool stuff, and there's still a lot of stuff that isn't quite figured out yet, so it's pretty cool, honestly.
Inferno squad. The Dauntless has regained power.
And it's been a huge enjoyment being able to like come up with new strategies and find new stuff for this game, which
My orders are to protect the satellites, not
is
attack
pretty
Imperial
just
space.
exciting to find. Now here we're going to destroy an objective, but we have to wait for this guy to say,
Those are your new
I usually follow that thing just to line myself up quite well, and I wait for him to say those are.
Agent Hask, prepare for an attack run on the
So I actually made a mistake
control
there,
tower.
which I realized I was going to make. But you can shoot a torpedo at that, so you don't have to kill it fully, because you can dumbfire torpedoes, which means that they don't need to be locked on, and it'll just fly and kill the thing. But I actually got the amount of damage wrong there, so a little bit of a time loss there. But we use our second ability to kill this thing, and then as soon as we kill that thing, these TIE fighters spawn, which is our next objective, but it doesn't tell you that yet. But as soon as you kill that third TIE fighter, you can reset from checkpoint, and we'll be on the last objective here, where we need to destroy these things. We pop our abilities just to get here a little bit faster, because one of the abilities speeds us up, and the other one does a big burst of damage. And now we just do this little waiting segment, and it'll be the end of the third level. So I apologize if I'm going quite fast. I'm trying to explain things, but there's just there's a lot of little like different mechanics in this game. It's not a lot of doing the same thing, which is honestly pretty exciting as you run it. Like a lot of the levels work very differently to each other, so each level kind of has its very different feel, which is just exciting and keeps it fresh, honestly. Now we are on the most inconsistent level. So obviously you can see we're not playing Aiden anymore, the main character. We're now playing Luke for some reason. We do play as a couple like special characters throughout different missions. But something that if you've played the multiplayer, you'll know is that characters have a dodge ability, which we haven't been using as Aiden because Aiden doesn't have it for some reason. But if you're playing as the Jedi characters throughout the campaign, they do have the dodge ability, which is just a bit faster than running. So you can't see the UI at the bottom, which would usually be there telling you how many dodges you have or how quickly they regenerate, but they are there. So whatever your dodge key is in the settings, you can still dodge here. And now we just want to skip all these enemies and get to our objective as quickly as possible. We also use our ability there just because it speeds us up a little bit. So we're just going to be taking a pretty direct route. You can get a little stuck on this terrain, but it's not like, see there, it's a little bit of a slowdown, but it's not the biggest deal, honestly, over a full run. So it's not worth worrying about. You can just try your best, and if it happens, it happens.
Here come the reinforcements.
So we're just running past all these enemies. And now we do a little trick there. As Jedi, you can jump swing, which is just a tiny bit faster than just regular jumping, because for some reason you float down to the surface. When you jump swing, that doesn't happen. So we just jump swing. Now this part, you want to get into the middle of this group of enemies and use your ability to ground pound there, because you have to kill all those enemies before you progress. And then you kill this officer. I actually messed it up. And when you reset, where I've already passed, there you go. So I had to kill that jet trooper, which is a little unfortunate, but you kind of just have to remember which enemies are important. And when you get up to this thing, they'll usually be in pretty similar locations. Sometimes it messes up, sometimes it doesn't. But You have to kill all of them to progress. But as soon as he says the voice line, as soon as that voice line pops up at the bottom of the screen, usually when you kill the officer, because you want to kill them all with that first ground pound, you can reset from the checkpoint and you'll be inside the cave, which will speed you up a little bit.
Looks like I'm not the only one who wishes the
And we want
Empire
to
was
skip past these guys, do another jump swing, because it speeds us up a little bit. And then we're going to do another trick here with Jedis, where if you use their force ability while jumping, it doesn't lock you in an animation, which is, it's honestly a pretty cool trick and fun to do. So we use the force push to break those crystals so we can progress into the cave.
So am I.
And then,
It seems the
because otherwise you get locked in a long animation, which takes a long time to recover from.
There's always more to it than luck.
Now, this part, so all of this up to this part, other than the ground pound part where you kill all the enemies out in the open, that part can be a little inconsistent. Like you saw, I wasn't able to kill all of them with the one, so I had to kill the other guy, go back and find him. The big problem is that they mix in, the enemies mix in, because there's a lot of enemies that we ran past, so they start to mix in, so it can be very hard to figure out which enemies you need to kill to progress, like get the dialogue at the bottom. So that part can be frustrating. But usually they all line up for the ground pound. But after we break these crystals, we can reset from the checkpoint, which is important because it'll push Dell inside this cave. Now, this part might be one of the most frustrating parts of the run.
So that's why you're
It's interesting. So Dell is quite a character. As soon as he kind of stands here, I'm going to tell you how to manipulate it as best as is currently known. But sometimes it just messes you over, and there's not much you can really do about it. So when he runs up and he stands here, as soon as he kind of stands still, you want to break this. Sometimes you can lose some time because he'll run on the spot for some reason before running to this thing that he needs to hack. But if you destroy the crystals on the thing beforehand, he always seems to stand there and move back and forth. Whereas sometimes if you destroy it after, he'll be in the right position and just run straight to it, which is quite useful. So that actually, it went well. So he just went straight to it instead of running on the spot, which is quite useful.
How's that?
Now you can destroy this other one immediately. He's going to have to hack 2 here. So you can destroy that one immediately while you wait for him to do this dialogue. And now we're going to be doing Defend Dell. So earlier we defended a droid, which was a lot nicer. Dell likes to get irritated very easily and just suddenly stop working. And he doesn't like to keep working sometimes. So these bugs are going to constantly spawn. I'm going to explain this so I can kind of show it off as best as I can when it's happening. But they're going to constantly spawn, and we're going to try and kill them as quickly as possible. Because if you don't kill them, if they group up enough, then Dell will get angry just because there's a lot of them and you haven't killed some in a while. That's what it seems like anyway. And if he gets hit for a long time, he can get hit for quite a while. The bugs will start hitting him. He doesn't seem to get too angry, but if you do leave them for a long time, then he does seem to get angry. So we're going to be defending him while also making sure that not that many bugs are around. But then the next part comes in where about 50% through the defend bar at the top, the bugs are all going to kind of fly into this cave on our right. And you want to be ready for this. You want to be ready by about 40% and position yourself in front of the cave, because if any of them seem to get into the cave, then about 10 seconds later at about 60% of the bar, he'll just suddenly stop working because one bug seems to fly out of the cave and disrupt him. So we're going to try and defend the cave and make sure that no bugs get to the thing while also defending him, while also trying to make sure there's not too many bugs alive at one time. And then there's the next part, which is if he doesn't get disrupted by the caves, there's like an earthquake sequence. Because the bugs all stop spawning when they go up into the cave. They stop spawning and just all the ones that are currently alive try and go up into the cave. And then there's an earthquake where new bugs will spawn. And you want to try and kill the new bugs as quickly as possible. And I usually do this with a force push. You kind of just like listen for the audio and see the first bug you can see and just kill one of them. Because for some reason, if you don't seem to kill one of them very quickly, he just gets irritated instantly. So I'm going to try and show it off as best I can, but if it's inconsistent, it's inconsistent. So I just wanted to explain that. We're also going to be doing basically the same thing on the other side. So these annoying bugs are just going to keep spawning. And we can use our dash ability, but we want to save our ground pound for when they go up into the cave, because it's very useful, because sometimes they can just fly really quickly past you. So you want to save that as kind of a last chance ability, and the force push, honestly, our other ability. But the dash you can use to clear out some bugs. It's not too big of a deal. But this part, this is as much manipulation that is known for this part. But it is inconsistent, which can be rough. All right, so now it's about 40%. We want to make sure that none of them fly up here. Looks good. I killed quite a lot, so there wasn't that many that flew into the cave, so we should be good. I don't think I heard the earthquake there, but thankfully we killed one instantly, so we're good. We skipped that part. So now it's just, we should be good. We don't really have to worry about too much. But at the end, we want all the bugs to be dead because Del won't move on to the next relay before all the bugs are dead. So we want to kind of kill them all instantly as soon as the bar is done. And I usually line myself up in a specific spot and then do a ground pound, which should hopefully hit all of them. Sometimes there's one or two stragglers, but so I usually stand about here. And so he instantly runs over to the next one. So that was good. That was good. We didn't lose too much time there. And we didn't get any reds where he stopped working on the first one. So honestly, this is going very well so far. And then this is the same thing. So we're going to be doing the defend the cave at about 40% and then waiting for the earthquake at about 60%. And then for the last part, he'll run straight to the door and the level will be over. So hopefully we can not get any reds here. I usually call them reds because the bar flashes right at the top and it's pretty infuriating. So we're coming up on when they're going to go into the cave. So you can see they all pop off the walls and they try and go up into the cave, which is not great. But that went pretty well. I don't think any got up there. So now we wait for the earthquake. For some reason, the earthquake doesn't seem to be happening, which, like I said, this level's a bit inconsistent. But you can see all the bugs suddenly start spawning and you just want to kill one as soon as possible. So this went really well, actually. Thankfully, we didn't get to show off how annoying Del can really be. So now, as long as there just isn't too many bugs or they don't attack Del for too long, then we're perfectly fine. And he actually runs past all the bugs for once. He works up some courage at the end, and we don't have to worry about any more bugs. So, but you want to be at this door when he gets here, because as soon as he's close enough, the level will end. There you go. So that was the end of the 4th level. Which is probably the most inconsistent level. I'd say Battle of Endor is the 2nd most inconsistent.
How am I supposed to open it? With a key.
But if you do get like a red there and you lose some time, it's not too big of a deal in a full run, honestly. It'll maybe be like 20 seconds, maybe 30, because the actual duration of how long he stops working for is also inconsistent. Sometimes he will just get back to work instantly and it'll be fine. Sometimes he'll take forever and it won't get back to work and you'll lose 30 seconds for what feels like no reason. So that part, it can be frustrating. For this part, we want to reset as soon as we load in this level because we're going to do a lot of running at the start of this level. So we want to equip the Vanguard. Usually you go through these menus as quickly as you can. And we also unequip, so we swap whatever was in that slot. It's the flash grenade because it replaces our left ability. And we could use the left ability to save a little bit of time. So it's just faster than choosing a new slot.
We'll find Protectorate in the archive.
This start of the level, we're going to do a lot of walking, which there's going to be 2 teammates behind us, Del and Hask, which are pretty recurring characters. Hask will show up later on at another very frustrating part. So they walk behind us, and see, we could have maybe gotten a little bit of a boost there. But this part, they seem to walk quite inconsistently. There might be a way to manipulate them based on your own movement. But it's not currently, there's no current strat. So I usually just end up ignoring them because it's not going to be a huge time save regardless. But if you could get the boost, it would be nice. Because that was the first one. If you get boosted by them, it can be kind of nice. But if you walk out of your way and then don't get it, then it can slow you down. So, but then after we get through this next gate, there will be potential for the 2nd boost as we walk towards this middle fountain. But again, it's just inconsistent. If there was a current strat, it'd be worth doing for sure. But there's no consistent strat for always getting them to line up properly. So. At the start, there was a lot of things to explain. There's a lot of different aspects. So here we got the boost, actually. I usually stand there just because there's no real downside. But there you kind of have to turn off. So it's not super impactful, but it's worth trying. This is probably the most impactful one up these stairs. But this is the most inconsistent one. So I usually just walk straight up the stairs because you have to go super out of your way to maybe get it. But if you look straight down, you can see better. If you upped your FOV, actually, you could see them even better to potentially get the boost, but it doesn't seem super important without a consistent strat, because you can't redirect that much. So you kind of have to know where to stand regardless. So even if you can see them better, it doesn't matter that much. So from this point on in the campaign, we are now a rebel, which
There's a passageway on the other side of the plaza.
it disappoints me, but we're now a good guy. So that's always fun. But we want to hack that thing, run over here. We're going to be using our Vanguard. I disable it there because it saves, otherwise the duration runs out. And we're going to be doing some more running. So it'll refresh and now we can pop it again. So you end up running without it for a little bit, but it ends up being a net positive in the end. We're just going to avoid these enemies because we can't seem to die for some reason. And then on this next one, I'm going to do the same thing. We'll just disable it as soon as we start the hack because it doesn't really save that much time.
Come on. We can shut down the anti-air systems ahead.
And then our Vanguard will come back up. We can pop it again, which will just give us a little bit extra speed. We're going to jump up these 3 staircases just because it saves time than running around them. And then here we're going to jump over, create a box, and try and throw a grenade if we can. It can be kind of difficult to do. But if we throw that grenade, those guys don't block us as we get in this walker. And this walker, this is a very long auto-scroller, which is always fun in speedruns. But it's not the worst, honestly. There's a couple objectives to shoot, so it's not completely like inputless. You do have to shoot a couple things, which I'll point out. But the start of the game was, there's quite a few things to explain at the start, so hopefully it'll be a little less all over the place now. But you can ignore the enemies and the ATSTs here, these little walker things. And you just need to shoot these cannons. If you shoot them as you're walking, then they don't get in the way. Or like they don't slow you down. But if you do miss an objective, it will stop the walker.
He's following his orders.
And that will lose you time. So
Neither were ours. We need to get the civilians off Vardos. Then what?
this is the second auto cannon we'll destroy here,
Then we come up with a plan.
which we can't really shoot at properly because it doesn't really go where we're aiming. So we just wait until we can shoot it. I don't actually know if you die easier in this section if on the higher difficulties. I would assume so, but I'm not actually sure. Because if so, you might have a lot more to do. But you do end this part with a lot of health, so I don't know that it would come into play. So as we walk here, the next thing that we'll have to shoot, that was all the auto cannons that we destroyed. Those are quite easy. Next, there will be TIE fighters that show up. There will be 3 of them. The first one will show up right about now. And you want to wait till he stops moving because there's a little bit of screen shake, which messes with your aim. And they have a little bit of invulnerability frames before they actually stop moving, and they can be quite hard to hit. So usually it's better to just wait and shoot them once they're stationary. And now as we walk forward, this radar dish will turn. It's actually out of sync now, which I'm not sure why that happens, but when that objective pops up at the top, you can start shooting the targeting array. Usually you can line it up with where it's moving, but sometimes it's out of sync for some reason, which is more rare that it is out of sync, but...
Did it! Weapons in this sector are disabled.
And now we should get another TIE fighter. Yep.
I'm bringing us as close as I can.
Which there's a lot of screen shake going on, so I could have shot that a bit quicker, but as long as you don't stop moving, this bit is about the same speed. Now we can shoot this wall before the objective actually appears for it. So you want to kill that just while you're idly walking forward. So I see he had some invulnerability frames, which is a bit unfortunate. Now this is the part where you actually do stop moving, and you can sometimes do this bit a bit quicker by shooting him before your aim really lets you, because the splash radius is quite large.
Nowhere else to go.
So see, we're stopped moving now, which loses us some time. So the faster you kill this thing, the better. So if you miss, it can be a little bit of time loss. But now we're done, and we just walk towards the end. This level's not the most exciting, because there is another long waiting segment that we're going to have to do, which seems to be not too much. But I kind of like the little waiting segments here and there throughout the run, because they're not too long. Like the one on the observatory, there's lots to do. But this next one, there's not really much to worry about. But I like it as like a little break during the run where you can you know, relax a little bit, take a drink, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Relax your hand a little bit.
It gives you a little bit of time to, you know, relax and take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, auto-scrollers can be boring, but a little relax point is kind of nice here and there.
Lower the ramp.
Sure.
Everyone on board.
We're going to pop our Vanguard here and just run straight towards the objective, because as soon as you hit this objective, invisible timer starts. So now we're basically just waiting, as far as is known, at least, because it's quite a long waiting segment, sadly, but
Suppress those troopers.
this is probably the longest one in the whole game where you don't really do anything. But you can kill enemies. I usually just pick up the gun over there. Just, you don't really need to, but just shoot them, because I mean, presumably they could kill you. This is where higher difficulties could be more interesting, because you would actually have a reason to shoot these guys, because I mean, dying in 3 shots or 4 shots is a lot different to like the 15 that we can take. Like there, we might have died, honestly, in higher difficulty, because we took a shot from the walker and then got shot multiple times by a trooper. He just presumably had some good aim.
To keep us grounded.
So you'd have to be a bit more careful.
Looking for enemies.
This bit is interesting, though, because it does seem like sometimes it takes longer than others. But I actually recently timed it with like a couple different runs, which all looked visually very different. But it seems to be that as soon as you hit that checkpoint, when you run from there to there, the timer starts, and nothing else that happens really seems to matter. It always seems to end up being about the same time. But sometimes this walker can stand here for a long time. Like there, we actually exploded quite quickly, but we're not going to immediately be able to progress. What we're looking for is a walker walking out from over there. And also sounds coming from the ship. So like, see, that thing exploded quite quickly. Sometimes it takes forever to explode, but there's the walker. So now as soon as we see the walker, we know we're almost done. You want to run until this mission thing pops up, and then just back up until you're not out it, and then just jump. Because you can reach the objective from underneath the ramp if you just jump. So as soon as it pops up, we'll hit it, basically. And that is the end of Storm, which I think is the 6th level, or the 5th. I haven't been keeping count. This Lex level is actually quite fun, but this is probably the 3rd most inconsistent level. But it's kind of just inconsistent in terms of how consistently you can do it, not because something will mess you over. So we're going to do this short walking segment, well, short in quotations, where it doesn't really seem like you can do anything to speed it up. You do have to be at the end door when they get there, or a little bit behind when they get there, because if you're not there, then the text won't appear and you won't be able to progress, so you have to... So as long as you're walking forward, you're fine, though.
Somewhere you can track us?
But we're going to be going straight into a lot of flying. This is just a short walking segment for storyline purposes. But we're going to be destroying some satellites, which is kind of the 2nd segment of the level. And then we're going to be destroying some shield arrays. And the shield arrays are really the interesting part. The satellites are quite fun to do, but those are very consistent. And you can do them quite quickly if you do it properly. You can save a lot of, like, chunks of time there.
No one's asking you to. This is a one-time deal. You can leave right now, or you can help stop this.
You really trust us to fight beside you?
So as long as you're about here when the
Big believer
thing
in
comes
second chances.
up, you're good.
Come on, I'll show you to your ships.
This is probably my favorite voice line of the game. I just want to mention
I
that.
don't even know how to fly X-Wing.
I have no idea why. I've just taken a liking to that specific voice line, and it always makes me smile when I see it. So now we're going to be destroying 3 groups of satellites. For this first one, there's 3 groups of 3. For this first one, the one in the middle gets destroyed by our teammates on the right. So we're going to completely ignore that one because we know it's going to get exploded.
We'll destroy those cinder satellites.
And then we're just going to
I'm right behind you.
hold W to go as fast as we can to the other one.
Just know if either of you try something.
Now we're going to be using our abilities here. We have a quad cannon, which does a lot more damage, and then we have a torpedo. We're going to be dumb firing the torpedo as much as we can. So we can't reach the shots yet. Should be able to shoot it about now. You'll see the explosions. These torpedoes do about 75% of a satellite's health. So you'll see that we killed it with the dumbfire there, and we can just immediately start going to the next one. These have little red markings on the bottom, little red squares, where they take increased damage. And we want to be focusing on those as much as possible. But while you're in a ship, this game has weird auto-aim, where you want to shoot at the little red dot, but as soon as it thinks you're aiming on something, it will just keep shooting that. So right here, we're not shooting the red dot, so we use our quad cannon to kill it quickly. And then we blind fire the torpedo there and kill this one on the way to the next one.
Take out the outer satellites first if you need to.
And this is going to be the final set here. This part's quite fun to do, honestly. I think the fact there's a lot of different parts makes this game pretty exciting to run. So we can shoot this one before the objective shows up. And then we're going to want to... So see, I'm auto-aiming on that TIE fighter there, which is not what I wanted, but you can't really control that. And see, I'm auto-aiming to the side there. It's a little inconvenient, but you can kind of abuse it or control it a little bit. As soon as you blow up the third one, or well, as soon as you blow up all 3, you can reset. And this is important because I'm going to explain... Actually, I can explain this while I do it, to be fair, because it's a little bit of a long segment. Basically, the game wants us to destroy these shield arrays, but the game doesn't tell you that you can actually do damage to them. It just doesn't. They don't have a health bar. It thinks that you should just protect the bombers. That's our objective. So we're going to use our abilities and shoot it, but the bombers do damage, so we want to protect them. But for some reason, they take an absurd amount of damage at the start, which really slows down how fast the shield arrays die. So we want to protect them until it doesn't really seem valuable. I'm not sure why they seem to die faster at the start or slower. This is the most consistent strategy currently. So we want to go straight for it, use our abilities, and then turn around, kill those 2 fighters, go back around because our abilities were reset, and then kill these 5 enemies. And then as soon as we kill these 5 enemies, we completely ignore any other enemies that the game tells us to kill because we don't need to. And now we're basically going to do like this rotation, which I can't really explain how far you go here. It's kind of just a feeling you get. You basically want your torpedo to be off cooldown every time you come back around, and your quad cannon to be off cooldown every other time you come back around. You just dumbfire the torpedo, shoot at this, and then go back. You speed up once you go past it. Do not crash here. It is tempting to try and get as much damage as possible, and you should to try and be as fast as possible. But if you crash, it starts from the very start. You can lose minutes, which is basically a dead run. So you want to play as safe as you can and just not crash into them, but maximize your damage at the same time. And there's actually a reason we shoot this one over the other one. The ship on our right, the cruiser that we came out of, or that we flew out from under, it shoots these bolts, which do damage to the shield arrays. But for some reason, you can see one coming in there. It can't hit the one on the left consistently, but it can hit the one on the right consistently. And if you shoot one and kill one, then it'll start shooting the other one. So we shoot at this one and do damage to it, while it does damage to the other one, which saves us some time.
TIE fighters inbound. Let's take them down.
So now as soon as that one's dead, we just do the rotation on the other one. And it is a bit inconsistent how fast you can do this level, but you can get better at it and maximize your time more. Like right there, I made a mistake. I didn't get a torpedo off, which is going to lose you time. So, but since I know my abilities are off cooldown, I can turn around faster. And there you go. So as soon as that blows up, the mission is over. You just wait for the cutscene to appear.
Good work. Our Y-wings
And that is
bombing run.
I think that is the 6th level.
Yeah, Outcast is the
Everyone else,
6th.
pull back.
Okay, yeah. Now, this next level is sadly probably the most boring level, but you do some stuff in between. It's not completely
We're not looking at the same burning
like you don't just sit there and do nothing like the end of Storm. But now we're going to be playing as Princess Leia,
Something that'll
which it's kind of odd how you switch characters a lot. But we want to run over here. This part's important because you want to run over here. This is a bit of AI manipulation because if you kill them from there, then these enemies should spawn here, which is important because you want to get him to this relay as quickly as possible. And you have to kill all those enemies for him to start running to it. So with that, seems to be the most consistent strategy to get him instantly working on it as fast as possible. And then now we just defend him. If he does get shot, he does seem to get angry. But thankfully, we have a shield this time to protect Del, so he doesn't get angry at us for no reason. So you place this about at the start when the bar first appears and about 50%, and then just stand around and make sure that nobody gets into the shield, and then it pretty much can't go red and lose you time here. So you do have to kill them because if they do get inside the shield and shoot him, then he will stop working. But it's usually pretty easy to stop them. It's not too difficult at all. So the shield's going to run out. You can see the bar at the top. It doesn't run out exactly at 50%, but it's easy to just place another one. And then we're going to do a pretty cool trick, honestly, that somebody found. One of the people that really set like the foundation for the game long before I played it. Where as soon as this bar is done, we kind of want to wait until it's like close to being done. And then we want to run over here. Now we want to run to a specific spot because if we go out of bounds, it'll go red. So we want to stand about here, line up with this lamp, and then before this like insignia on the ground. And then as soon as the bar disappears, you can start running. And we're going to skip a huge chunk of this level. What I just did there is kind of important, and I can reset here and easily show it, honestly. So you want to start running as soon as the bar disappears. But you want to run out of bounds here, but if you do mess this up, you will die. But this is a pretty safe strategy. So you start running from here usually when you start the mission, and then you want to run down this thing. You'll go out of bounds here, but you run around this tree because then you go back in bounds, and then you line up with this thing and just run straight here. And then you'll get in bounds over here. There is a riskier strategy which doesn't run around the tree, but you end up getting inside like with like half a second left, and sometimes you'll die. So it's not worth doing for a full run. Then you want to pop your ability here because and kill these enemies as quickly as possible because then Dead will start working instantly on the next one, which is quite nice. And then we just do the same thing where we defend him again. So I place a shield at start and then place a shield again at like 50%, just so he can't get shot really. And then just make sure nobody gets inside the shield and we're all good. Del can't get angry at us.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Come on.
Place another shield just to make sure it doesn't get shot. And then we are going to line ourselves up with a specific spot at the end of this bar as well. But this one's a lot closer and easier to stand, so you can wait till pretty close to the end. But you do want to be there and ready, because if you're not there and ready when the bar ends, then you do lose a bit of time. It's not much, but it's easily avoidable to lose it, so worth just paying attention. So we'll start running over now. We want to stand at the bottom of the step, but before this vine. If you go past the vine, he'll stop working. Now, this part, you don't want to do this risky, because there's actually a glitch here where if you run out to the next objective, like you run out of the area and you trigger Del to stop working, right as it completes, the mission will complete, but not actually complete. And so you'll move on to the next objective, but the game won't progress past that. And since the next objective is a waiting segment, you'll end up waiting quite a long time before you realize that nothing's happening. I've had that happen a couple times. So you want to wait just until the bar's done, and now you're good. And as soon as you hit this checkpoint, you can reload. For some reason, this saves a couple seconds. I'm not sure why, because we moved like 2 feet, but it somehow moves the objective forward. So it's worth doing. And then now we are just going to stand here and defend. These allies can't really die very easily. If you stand around and do nothing, they will actually die. You do have to shoot them. But it's usually very easy to make sure that you don't hit 0 or anything. But every now and then we'll be falling back when the objective tells us and when the voice lines. I don't think being at the objective faster speeds it up, but I could be wrong. I'm not 100% on that. I don't know if that's known at all, to be honest. I usually try and get to the objective as fast as possible just to hopefully not lose any time if there is time lost there, but it'd be very, very difficult to tell, I feel like. But should tell us to fall back again pretty soon here.
They're right on top of us.
There we go. Fall back to the next objective.
Get down.
And then we'll fall back like 2 or 3 more times. So this is kind of the most boring level, honestly. But it's at a nice like middle segment of the run. Usually you're going to be about, I think about like 45 minutes in or something, roughly, at this point. So a nice breather. And you can keep shooting things, just keep your aim fresh. This game isn't too aim intensive, but there is a couple segments where if you do aim badly, you are going to lose time, where you have to kill all the enemies as quickly as possible. There's a level later on where usually I'm worried if my aim isn't great, because you can lose some time if you're like fundamentally not aiming very well.
Complex and outdated.
We'll buy the time. It won't be much.
Don't worry, Princess. It'll be enough.
Should fall back again here pretty soon. Or not. Will happen. So the long waiting segment where it glitches out is just at the start, though. So you'll know immediately that, like, well, not immediately, but it'll be obvious once you've lost a lot of time that nothing's happening. It pretty much is a run killer. So making sure that that bar doesn't go red before you leave and do that reset is pretty important. Because I've had some runs die because of that, which is pretty rough.
Yeah, for sure.
Princess, the pulse is almost ready.
Good, because we're running out of places to take cover. Del, now would be a very good time.
All right, so now we can just stand inside here and just wait. And it will trigger a cutscene after some dialogue. So it would be nice if we could skip dialogue somehow, but doesn't seem to be a way, so. And that is the end of Royalty. Should be the 7th mission. So we're about halfway through the game now. The last 2 missions are quite short compared to the rest, but it still ends up being about halfway through the run. Just nice middle spot to have a breather.
Okay. We're surrounded.
And then now we're playing as Han Solo, which again is not the main character, which is pretty interesting. For this first segment, we're just gonna be walking to a couple different objectives and interacting with these people, so we can know the location of our next objective, even though we already know where we're going.
Not a chance. Come on, it all worked out. It must have, because here you are.
Back off. Find your pal Dora on your own. You two can talk about your stupid beards.
So he's a bearded guy. Got it.
We're gonna walk to the next one. We'll be able to run here in a second, or well, walk a bit faster at least. These little inputs where you hold the interact key is a little bit specific. This guy, you want to stand more to the left than you'd think.
Hey, Mr. Paldor. Long
but
time no see.
after you do it a couple times, you'll get used to like where the game kind of wants you to stand, and you can hold F as you walk forward. So
Insufferable man upstairs. My mistake.
this is the first time out of a couple where your camera won't actually follow your character there after you finish that interacting, but you can stop moving a little bit faster. So it is a little bit difficult to always get that movement consistent because it's a little difficult to walk without being able to see where you're going. But usually I just hold backwards instead of holding forwards and hold one turn key, so I can turn my character as I walk backwards and then walk forward as soon as I feel like I'm all the way around. So you end up doing it again here. See, that was pretty bad. I ended up walking a lot to the right, but it's not a big deal.
expect I'll get to meet a Wookiee very soon if... Han Solo! I'm Imperial Specialist Ralcius Paldora. It is a pleasure to finally meet you.
Shh. You want to keep it down?
Oh, right. Because we're meeting incognito.
All right, and now we just walk outside of this cantina, and I'll be showing off a trick that we do, actually. I can kind of explain it as we walk, because there's not much else to explain here in this part. But this was actually recently discovered as I was running the game. Somebody popped in my chat and explained that there is a glitch that you can do in multiplayer where you can shoulder charge as Han Solo infinitely. And you can do this in single player as well, which you do walk a little bit faster when you're shoulder charging, which is one of Han Solo's abilities. So you can try and maximize as much as you can. I'll show it off here just to explain. So you can use your ability, and then at as close to the end of the duration as you can, you press your melee button. I didn't showcase it there because I was just explaining, but you press your melee button and then you'll do the end of the shoulder charge animation, but then you can instantly press E again and just do another one. And you can just keep doing it. And now you can do this as soon as you want. You can just keep going back and forth, but you want to try and maximize your shoulder charges. So you only press it at the end. It seems to last about 4 to 5 seconds, but it's going to be like a muscle memory thing to just optimize it. So I reset there just to show what we would do normally. Just run straight forward. This part isn't too important how fast you kill these guys. I usually throw this grenade just because it kills a large chunk of them. These enemies are pretty consistent. They always seem to spawn in the same order. And it doesn't seem to matter how fast you kill these guys because you then have to wait for these voice lines. If you do kill them very slow, then he will finish his voice lines before you kill them, and then you lose time. But there's quite a few voice lines on this one. In the next part, there's less, because we'll be trying to find one of these crates again in the next part. So as long as you're here when this F appears, you're all good. The interact key. And then now we're going to be doing the shoulder charge glitch because it's actually important here. I usually just count to 3 and then do it in my head. But it's going to be down to personal to know how fast you can do it, depending on how you count or your strategy. But you kind of just want to optimize it as much as possible. Now we ran to our next objective here. You want to run pretty far here, close to the stump, because we are going to reset here. The objective that shows up, it doesn't actually disappear, even though we hit the next checkpoint. So you want to make sure you're close to the stump, because if you reset and you go back, you lose a big chunk of time. So you want to make sure you're close to the stump, and then you want to reset, because there's all those enemies we ran past behind us, and those will follow us to this next objective, and you have to kill them all before you can interact with it. So you want to reset, even though it puts us a little bit back down this hill from where we were. We run back up to the shrine, which we were right next to before, and then you want to kill these guys as fast as possible like before. As long as he doesn't finish his voice lines, the guy talking, before all the enemies are dead, then we should be good. But if you do... So that was his last voice line. Han Solo says one, and then the objective appears. So if you're not here when the interact key shows up, you do lose time. But otherwise, it seems to be about the same. So... but those enemy spawns are very consistent, so you'll know where they are. Now we want to do the shoulder charge glitch again. Take advantage of this. Try and get as much optimization. See, I messed it up there. And then you do the melee animation if you mistime it, so you do lose some time, and then you have to run without it. So it's better to be on the safer side, but the longer you leave it, the more time you're getting out of it, potentially. So just a little optimization that you can save a bit of time. And now we want to get up to this point and just defend. There will be some enemies running away from us. We don't have to kill those. We just have to kill the enemies that are running towards us. And eventually the next objective will trigger. So as soon as that hold them off appears at the top, we can run over here. Now this part is kind of important to aim well. The enemies do spawn in a very consistent pattern. You'll know where they all spawn as you get more used to it. But there's a skip we can do if we kill all the enemies before a invisible timer plays in the background. If all the enemies are dead before that timer happens, then we skip a big chunk of dialogue, which is about like 20 seconds. So you can see me looking where I usually expect these enemies to be. So one should spawn over there. It's taking a minute. There he is. Kill them. There's some more. Should be one on the left soon. I think one on the right. Or not. Maybe it's because sometimes resetting from checkpoint does change things a little bit. There's the enemy on the left I was expecting, but... So sometimes it can change things, which is a little inconvenient, but it's only occurring in a couple areas. Those three enemies always walk out. I'm shooting very badly, let's not talk about it. But as long as the enemies are all dead by the end, there will be a heavy. There you go, there's the heavy on our left. There's that heavy. We want to kill this enemy on the right, and we want to run down here and turn left, because that way the enemy that we want to kill will spawn. And we want to make sure that all the enemies are dead. If you did it correctly, then after this Han Solo voice line, we'll get... Actually, so that enemy took a lot longer to spawn than I thought. So we didn't get it here. So we get these voice lines here, which usually you wouldn't have to listen to. That skip isn't too hard to get, honestly. I just mistaked. So we have to listen to all this, which loses us about like 20 to 30 seconds sometimes. So as soon as she says clear on the ground, then we have to listen to this. So usually you get these three voice lines and then the objective appears. Well, the other voice lines that we listened to first appeared. They play while you're able to trigger the objective, so you don't have to listen to them.
Once it would be nice if they didn't put up a fight.
Where's the fun in that?
So the checkpoint should appear now, and then we can instantly get into the Falcon. But usually you wouldn't have to listen to the first big chunk of dialogue, so... That skip isn't too hard to do, but there is another skip here, which you can potentially get, which is a lot more inconsistent, but it saves another, like 20 to 30 seconds sometimes. But it's very inconsistent, and I've tried recently to try and figure out exactly how this works, but it seems to be like kind of a dialogue buffer. So there's going to be a ship here that we need to kill. This is the first objective, and we can kill it faster than the game actually tells us before the objective appears. But it won't actually die until a dialogue voice line seems to play, or it's just an invisible timer. I'm not sure which one. But as soon as the dialogue voice line happens, the ship will explode. Whether it's no matter how fast you killed it, that's as soon as it'll explode. And then our objective will change to destroy all the TIE fighters. There's 9 TIE fighters up at like a current time, it seems like. But you can kill them at any time. But as long as the ship is still alive, even if it's at 0 health and you're waiting for it to explode, the TIE fighters will just keep instantly respawning. So you want to destroy the ship as quickly as possible, basically, but then you have to wait for it to explode, and then you want to kill the TIE fighters as quickly as you can. Because it seems to be some kind of dialogue buffer. That's my best guess at how this works, where voice lines will keep playing, and then there's too many voice lines going on or like queued up, where it'll just instantly skip the end of the mission dialogue, and you'll save like 30 seconds. So I'm gonna try and do it as best I can with how I explained it. So this is my usual strat of how I go over to kill this thing, but you don't need to kill this fast. Sometimes I go really close to blow this thing up, but it's not super important. This hitbox is actually a lot bigger than you think it is, so don't crash into that, because then you'll die and have to fly again. So as soon as that explodes, now we just have to wait. My strategy currently is to fly over here, so that way you can kind of line up all the TIE fighters. Because the Falcon turns very slowly, and the TIE fighters turn quite quickly. And if they're flying towards you, then you can lose a lot of time. So as soon as that proton torpedoes, that's usually when you can shoot things. So we kind of want to use our ability here and kill them as quickly as possible.
One less fighter to worry about. Got him.
No, so we didn't get it there, which is unfortunate. But it just seemed like not that many voice lines were playing for some reason. I'm not sure why. That part's very strange. So all of this dialogue we would skip. As soon as the last TIE fighter dies, you basically just instantly finish the level. Which definitely looks a bit glitchy because it just instantly triggers the cutscene on screen, basically. So that's when that's what usually would happen, that cutscene there. So that can save you about 20 to 30 seconds, which is a nice skip to get, but it's an inconsistent one. So the skip on the ground is a lot more consistent. I usually get it most of the time. So, but that one is a little bit more in your control and kind of your fault, it feels like. So that was definitely my fault there. I counted the enemies wrong and forgot there would be one more. I kind of felt like something was off and there was an enemy I was missing, but just wasn't paying enough attention, right? So. But that was the end of the 8th level, I think. General Distress. And now this is... What number was it? Okay, I'm making sure I get it too wrong. This is Undercovered Skies, which is honestly a pretty fun level. There's a lot of segments here where you can do things a lot faster if you potentially do it. And there's potential here for better strats, honestly. At least in this first part. So for flying here, you're kind of just flying in a straight line. You're supposed to follow Del, but you don't need to. It's kind of like the Battle of Endor flight, where it's kind of a windy path. As long as you don't go out of bounds and you're flying generally in a straight line towards your objective, you're fine. So you want to fly towards the bottom of this platform here. You can kind of see a pillar. And you can see those lights there. So you kind of want to aim underneath those lights. Just a little bit underneath them. And then just fly straight. And then we'll reach the platform that we're going to land on. And this platform up ahead, there will be a lot of enemies that we need to kill. And as soon as you kill them all, and then Del reaches the elevator that we're going to go inside, then it'll trigger the next part of the level. So you could do this part a lot faster, potentially. With potential to kill them quite quickly. But I'm going to do it as fast as I know how, which is kind of just my strategy. Honestly, however you kill these guys, as long as it's fast, is perfectly fine. But you want Del to be close to the elevator, because then he'll have to run to it at the end. So if you take a path where he's nearer to the elevator, it is more beneficial. My path is usually just to kill them quite quickly and kind of give up the Del running time at the end, which is just a couple seconds where he has to run to the elevator. So we're going to use our gun that we spawned with. It's not worth resetting from the checkpoint here. You kind of just have to deal with it. I mean, you could reset from the checkpoint and switch guns, but it's a bit of a waste of time when you could just get used to the Vanguard, because the Vanguard is quite strong. Just going to be one-shotting these guys as quickly as we can. Heavy sometimes take an extra shot, but there we got the one shot, which is quite nice. So because we're basically invincible, we don't need to worry about dying too much, but you can actually die in this part, and you should be a little careful. So Del actually blocked a shot there. We have to kill that sniper. Kill that enemy, and this should be the last one here. Oh, no, there's another stormtrooper. I just heard him yell. That was some bad shooting. So kill that enemy, and now we'll go to the elevator. So that was pretty bad, honestly. But it could be worse. It could be worse. But there, we had to wait for Del to run to the elevator. As soon as he gets here, we are all good. Now we do a little walking segment. It's not too long. It's pretty quick, honestly. We get a brief segment where we're a stormtrooper again. Secretly.
This brings back memories.
We're going to take a little skip here. Instead of walking down the stairs, and walk down here. You can actually hear Del sometimes run a bit fast to try and catch up with us. Because, yeah, you can hear him. He's running quite fast to try and catch up with us because we skipped the stairs, which is kind of funny to me. And now, let's walk up here. Take a little wide berth around this guy because his hitbox is a little bit bigger than it seems. And then, just got to reach the elevator in front of us.
The Empire's on the run.
I think Del walks quite slow here, so no potential for him to boost us or anything. And the stairs, falling down the stairs is a lot better.
I hear the blockade's starting to crumble. Ships are breaking through.
Then we reach this elevator, and we'll go to the next part.
Droid, we're at the tower. You ready? See you up top.
Wait for it to open quickly. And now, as soon as we are able to take control of our character, which is usually from our crosshair, we want to hit escape and reset from checkpoint as quickly as possible. You can spam space here, or at least space on keyboard, to skip notifications of new weapons unlocking. And then you want to run out here with the Vanguard and run. I usually go along the line and then into the circle at the end of the platform a little bit, and then back out of the circle, and that usually triggers it. But you want the objective on the top right. You can go a bit further just to make sure, but it's not too much of a loss of time if you get it wrong. You can just run back into the circle and it should be fine. But you want the objective in the top right to disappear, and then you want to run back in here. These enemies will instantly spawn instead of you having to wait on the platform and fight a TIE fighter out there. You just want to kill all these guys as quick as possible, and you want to disable your Vanguard there. Make sure you disable the Vanguard because the cooldown will stay, and we're going to need it instantly as soon as we get to this next part. So now we wait for the objective to change. We go into the elevator. And then we're instantly going to pop our Vanguard here. Jump over this ledge, and then run down here. So this part is interesting. Even on Explorer, we can die here. I don't know how you would run this on Special Forces, honestly. We pop our shield here because the walk on our left will try and kill us. And then here, we're trying to kill a specific number of enemies. And then I will explain it as we wait here. So that was good. Those enemies that I killed are all you have to kill to progress. She'll say that's all of them, and then you're good. But all these enemies, they'll get mixed in with those. So if you don't kill the right ones, you can potentially lose a lot of time there. They are pretty consistent, but they do have a couple different like patterns. So you saw me walk up the platform and then look down the stairs on the opposite side of the stairs I came up, because one of them sometimes likes to run up those stairs. So I was making sure he wasn't there, and then I jumped back down the stairs because I didn't see him, which meant he was probably down with the others, and then kill all of those. You kind of just have to remember which enemies there are, though, you have to kill. But there's a specific amount. It's kind of like the observatory ground pound thing. You just kind of have to get a feel for which enemies are needed to kill to progress. But there, if you want to, like a video note, that was the least amount of enemies. I didn't kill any extra there. Thankfully, they're all pretty spaced out from other enemies. There's no other enemies mixed in if you kill them quickly. But if you miss one, then there's like 20 extra stormtroopers that show up. So there, we were just flying as fast as possible using our ability, which speeds us up to our objective, just using it on cooldown. And then now we need to destroy these fuel cells. This is usually my strategy how to do it, is to fly through them and kill these. And you want to kill these as fast as possible. They die quite quickly. The abilities aren't super useful to killing them. You do not want to crash here. You can play it safer if you need to. It's not too big a deal. You do have to wait for a bit of dialogue here, so there is a little bit of buffer time where you can do it slower and not lose time. And then that will be the end of the level, which is the end of Undercover Disguise. And then now, this is the level that I kind of alluded to earlier with the important aiming. My aim has been pretty bad today, so we'll see how it goes. But I'll try and do it as best I can. There's a waiting segment before I do it, or do the important part, so I'll be able to explain it there. So now we're playing as Lando Calrissian, and a lot of playing as characters other than Iden, the main character, which is kind of sad, honestly. I would have loved to see a little bit more Iden. But now I throw the smoke grenade because sometimes these guys can block you. If you throw the smoke grenade, they'll freak out and run away. But that's okay. So you don't need to do that. These guys can also block you. I throw this little stun thing because it makes them all stand in place, which is just helpful. I mean, again, if you're on a higher difficulty there, you would definitely die. That would not be possible. So you want to interact with that as quickly as possible, and then run over here and be ready for when this pops up.
Here, climb into this cockpit.
As long as you're there as quickly as possible. Now, this is the waiting segment. This next part, there's going to be a lot of enemies in this next room. We have to kill them as quickly as possible. The faster you kill them, the more time you save. But Lando's gun can only shoot a certain amount of times, and it takes forever to kill an enemy without a headshot. So you're basically going to be trying to headshot as much as possible. I'm going to reset as soon as we finish the cutscene. As soon as I have control of my character, I'm going to reset because it makes their AI more predictable and a pattern that I think is a lot easier to deal with. But you don't have to do the reset. It doesn't make less enemies or anything. I just feel like it makes it easier. I'm also going to be throwing this electric thing, which pops up a little red icon above all the enemies' heads if they're in range. This is just for target acquisition, just so I can aim better and find targets easier, because we're going to be trying to shoot them quite fast and hopefully not missing. But you'll see the pattern that I usually do. I'll point out if I mess it up, but... So we're going to be resetting, and then I'm going to be running over here, throwing the electric thing, shooting these two enemies. Okay, let's not talk about it. That was a little bit of a mess up. And then walk over here. Shoot all of those. We can reload as we turn around. God, my aim is terrible today. Let's not talk about it. And then usually I kill that heavy last. Sometimes he's here. But then as soon as you kill them and you run inside, I actually lost time there because it's as soon as you run up the stairs that you trigger the voice lines. So. But that part you can do potentially a lot faster. That was pretty bad. But I could kind of tell that my aim wasn't there today. Sometimes it's just not there. That's how it is for me, at least. So, but you can lose a little bit of time there. It's not like the hugest deal, but you want to do that as best as you can, because you can save a chunk of time, which helps you over the full run.
Whatever gets me farthest from you.
You want to avoid that chair there. I've gotten stuck on that chair a couple times. You want to kill these enemies that I'm killing here, because if you don't kill these enemies, the door does not open. It's very strange that you need to kill all of these specific enemies, but I'm only killing the ones you need to kill here. As soon as you kill this last enemy, the door will open. The stun grenade's kind of useful here, but it's kind of inconvenient to throw, because you can't throw it before the door opens, and then they're right in your face, but they do block you pretty heavy sometimes, so it is worth trying to throw it. This next part is, again, the same as the first room. The faster you kill these guys, the faster you're done. So you want to have good aim here and kill them as quickly as possible. They can be quite annoying because they take cover kind of awkwardly. My aim is quite bad today. Let's not talk about it again. But as soon as they die, the voice lines will trigger and you'll be able to interact with this console when they're done. So it's usually my route. I honestly have thought about rerouting that, at least for me personally. I feel like it could be better, but that's the current strat that I do. So as soon as you interact with that, you can run up here. They take cover behind those things so strangely, and sometimes the AI just is really bad at taking cover. So they'll glitch in and out of the cover and keep doing the animation over and over, which makes their head really hard to headshot them. And this gun does very little damage without a headshot, so it's pretty unfortunate when they do that. Now you want to throw this electric thing because these guys block you. It doesn't save that much time, but there's no reason not to. Then these guys can block you a little bit. Just try to avoid them as best you can. I've tried using a smoke grenade. Doesn't seem to really help. Now these, you need to kill these enemies. There you go. And then I usually like to kill this guy that shoots back at you. I'm not sure if that's actually important. I feel like it is, but I'm not sure on that, honestly. It seems to be able to trigger the thing faster in my experience, but I could be wrong, honestly. Like I said, this game hasn't been super extensively run like some games. So there's a lot of potential for better strats and stuff for sure. But then you just interact with the right console and then interact with the left one. And then you have to wait. As soon as the objective appears on screen here, we'll just start shooting because it times up with our heat pretty easily to instantly kill this thing. Now this, you can jump on this a lot sooner than I probably will here. Actually, I went for a bit of a riskier one there, right? But if you do die, it's not too much of a time loss. You just reset right as it's falling again. So it's maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds. But you can save a little bit of time by doing a faster jump down. Now, we're going to take a very direct path here. we're going to end up on kind of low health. Sometimes you can die. I usually don't kill any of these just because, in my experience, like 80% of the time you don't die. But if you're having a really good run, it might be worth not killing any. Honestly, you don't lose that much time for shooting them. But I'm going to do the direct path here. It honestly seems like a freak accident when it does happen when I die, so we're just going to avoid all the enemies here. Hopefully it'll go well. Let's take a direct path to the objective. Yeah, we have a lot of health right now, so we're perfectly fine. Sometimes you'll be at like 400 by this point, sometimes 300, so about 80%, okay, about 80%.
That was the sound of my plan.
Honestly, I think I've only died once, to be honest, but it was a very freak accident. I ended up at that, like, here I'm at 300, I was at like 20 at this point, which is so strange. I don't know how I took so much extra damage, but... And then the cutscene ends. You want to be by the end of the platform when it ends, otherwise it won't trigger immediately. And that was the end of Cash Grab, which is, I think, the 10th level? Yeah, 10th level, because we have Battle of Jakku, Until Ashes, and Discoveries. Until Ashes and Discoveries are quite short. Battle of Jakku is a bit longer, though. And this is probably one of my favorite strats, because I did come up with this one, and I'm quite happy with it. It's pretty cool. So there's two distress beacons that we have to fly to. We're going to fly to the right one, because it times up with the reset that we're going to do, because the second one has a lot of running. So we want our Vanguard. So you fly towards this and just aim. Once these TIE fighters spawn in, slow down and shoot these. For some reason, these TIE fighters can't die. They go down to 0 health until the objective spawns. So you can kill that one usually, and then turn around, and these guys will all be on 1 health, hopefully. You kill all those. And now you want to slow down here, because you do not want to crash into the ground, but you want to get as close to the objective as possible. Now, we are going to pick up an item here, an orbital relay or something. Orbital binoculars, that's what they're called, which will call down an orbital strike. So after we pick it up, we're going to reset, because we could have reset it right there and it would be about the same, but we want these 2 walkers that we're going to kill to become closer to us, because they're a bit far away right now, and when you reset, they instantly come closer to you for some reason, and they walk towards us over time, and the game wants you to use the orbital binoculars to hit them 3 times each to kill them. But we're going to do something different, because after the second orbital binocular, they actually end up with a very small amount of health. But the third one, you have to cast it anyway, so you have to wait for this cooldown. But I figured out that the blueberries from the TL50 actually do damage to them, a very small amount of damage. So we're going to equip the TL50 here, and then we're going to equip the Vanguard for the next segment. And then we're going to run down here. You're actually supposed to... I'll reset just so I can do this properly. You want to orbital binocular as soon as you load back in here, and then you want to run down here. This strat, once you get it down, it doesn't mess up really, ever. But you do have to get it down. So as soon as the cooldown's back, you want to do this. You want to get out of mission and then back up, and then shoot 2 blueberries about underneath this Star Destroyer, and they'll hit that and kill it. And this will come off cooldown again. You hit the second one, and then you want to line yourself up about here. So I lined myself up visually with the walker, and then I tried to get out of zone, and then stood right on the edge of the zone, and then you wait for your orbital binocular to reach about 50%. On the cooldown, and then you're going to want to start running forward and instantly do it, which I'll showcase. But the reason we do this is because, like I said, we skip 2 cooldowns of the orbital binoculars on both walkers, which is quite nice, but we also die while we do this. It's timed perfectly so that we die while killing it, so we progress to the next objective while also skipping the orbital binoculars, and we also reset to make them closer and equip the Vanguard. So it all kind of just lines up perfectly to save a big chunk of time. So we're going to start running forward instantly here, because it was about 50%. Orbital binocular, and then we want to line up our crosshair with this thing on the right, like vertically. I can pause here. So this thing on the right, the tip of this triangle, I usually line it up vertically with that, and then aim above the walker. You can see that the first blueberry will hit it, and then the second blueberry is going off as we die, basically. And this is important that you time it with the orbital binocular cooldown because it's about how far you are to how high you're aiming. So you're kind of triangulating how far you're supposed to aim, and they both line up perfectly. So we'll resume here, we'll die, and then as we die, it explodes, and it skips to the next objective. And so we're instantly on the next objective. We skipped a little bit of time by dying. We skipped 2 orbital binocular cooldowns, and we equipped the Vanguard for the next part of the level as we were moving them closer to be able to do that strategy. Because without resetting, they aren't close enough. So kind of all lines up perfectly. It's a pretty cool strat, honestly. That's like the one the cool strat that I came up with, so. But now we just have to kill these guys. I don't think these really slow you down, but it's nice to just kill them, get them out of the way. And then you want to line up with this out of bounds here and then wait for these guys to run up. And there's a timing here when this heavy, because he runs slower than everybody else, as he passes this pillar is usually when I start running. It's not too precise, but it's usually a good timing for it. So I'd start running now. You don't have to pop the Vanguard. It's not important. As long as you are at this thing when it pops up and you don't die, you're perfectly fine. So now we're going to get back in our X-Wing, and we're going to fly to the next beacon and do the second part of the level. Now this, you want to flick your aim up because there's a piece of debris here that you can sometimes hit. So just that piece right there on the right. If you hit that, it's a little bit of loss of time, not worth dying. So make sure you aim really high. As we reach this next beacon, 4 enemy fighters are going to come out of where the beacon is, and we are going to try and kill them as quickly as possible. If you kill them all, because they start flying towards you, if you kill them all before they get behind you, you can instantly go and land at the next objective without having to turn around. You can save a big chunk of time. But it is quite precise timing because of the way that the overheat and the duration of the quad cannon is. You can't kill them fast enough usually. So I'll try and do it here, but no promises. Yeah, we're not going to get it because the auto aim there. So he's going to fly past us with like half health, which is pretty unfortunate. We'll have to turn around to kill him and then turn back around. And as soon as this objective, so we could have landed right then as soon as the objective appears, but a little bit unfortunate that we have to fly back around. But that's not too easy to get, honestly. You don't get it very consistently, so it's not worth worrying about too much, but it's worth trying to get. So for this next part, we're going to do a lot of running and then interacting with objectives. So it's kind of like a couple other parts on like Storm, where we're going to time our Vanguard to come off cooldown at specific points. So we're going to activate it instantly because we're going to do a lot of running right at the start. You have to jump over this piece of rubble here, and then you can just run off this one here.
Good. Stay close. Wait.
This does seem to be the quickest path through all this rubble to get to our objective. And then I usually disable it right as I come around this corner. And then you interact with this, and then we just run normally to the next one.
Keep an eye out for more.
Interact with this one, and the Vanguard should come off cooldown. We can activate it again. If you do get low, you do take a lot of damage. You can pop the heal ability, which is nice. You don't have to worry about dying here. I'm going to run up these, and then you want to run to this far bomber with the Vanguard. And if you get here right as the objective appears, that's pretty nice. You don't lose any time. And then this is another part where your crosshair doesn't really follow your character, which is kind of annoying. And then you activate this. You want to disable your Vanguard when you place the first bomb, by the way, because the duration does disappear while you're planting it in the animation. And then you pop your Vanguard again and run out. Thankfully, while you're in animations like that, you can't take damage. So even though a TIE fighter is shooting us in the face, we're perfectly fine, which is great. And then we just Vanguard back to our ship. And this will be pretty much the end of the level.
Get to the ships.
We are going to do one last reset here because there's a little bit of a cutscene as we fly with the X-Wing, as we take off, and then also we start pretty low to the ground. Whereas if we reset, we start a lot higher in the sky, which is useful because our objective is just like straight above us, basically. So as soon as we have control of our character here, we're just going to instantly go to a reset. And then we just reset, and then you just want to aim straight up and aim at this. And then as soon as you get within range, it'll instantly finish the level, and you'll be perfectly fine.
How's it going up there?
And that will be the end of Battle of Jakku, which is the 10th level.
I think you're right.
So it should end right as she says Empire, basically.
Today,
Yeah, 11.
Nice. That is 11, you're right. So we instantly go on to Until Ashes here. So you want to speed up as soon as possible. This level is quite short, but we come back with a reoccurring phase. Hask shows up. So we're going to kill 3 sets of 3 TIE bombers here. You can kill these quite quickly, honestly, with the quad cannon. It does come down to a little bit of good aiming and heat control of not shooting too much. And then you want to kill these, and the other ones will spawn here on the left. They have 2 different patterns for some reason, these second ones. Sometimes they'll all fly in a straight line to the left. Sometimes they'll just fly wildly and turn around. There is somebody else that's going to fly quite wildly in this level, though, and can be quite frustrating. So now we go to the 3rd set of bombers. These are pretty consistent. Just want to quad cannon these, manage your heat, try and kill them as quickly as possible. That was pretty slow, honestly. And now Haas will spawn, and this guy is a pain. You have to kill him as quickly as possible. You have your torpedoes and your quad cannons, but he flies like a maniac. It's very strange what he's doing. Right now he's flying in a straight line. This is quite nice. We can quad cannon here, get some good damage. That was quite good damage. But he has a lot of health. And see, he just did a 360 for no reason. I'm not sure why. And then he flies in a straight line very far away from us. And then he flies directly at us. His ship's a little bit more maneuverable than ours. See, he turns around. That's a big loss of time there. There might be a way to manipulate his AI, but currently there is no, we're losing so much time trying to kill him, right? But he tried to kill us with the ship. This is actually potentially... Okay, Haas won, us 0. That was, that was probably the worst I've ever seen that go.
Yeah, that looks super annoying to deal with.
Yeah, sometimes he'll just fly in a straight line, and it's not annoying at all. He's actually shooting a missile at us. That usually never happens if you don't die. I don't know if the missile even kills us. He never usually shoots a missile. Okay, interesting. Yeah, this guy, especially as it's right at the end of the run, this is a pain to deal with. But it's definitely a height of the run as you're right at the end. If you know you have a good time, and then he is a pain, right? So
yeah.
So he dies a little bit faster than his health bar actually seems right there. So he had a little bit left, but he just instantly died, which is nice. But sometimes that can go really fast. You can get torpedoes on him. The torpedoes are rough. So you want to Vanguard here. We're just going to do a long running segment, and we're going to ignore every enemy because we're on Explorer. And also we have a heal. So even though they actually do get kind of close to killing us, even on Explorer, we have the heal ability, which basically just makes us actually invincible. So we just run, take a pretty direct route to our objectives. So you can get torpedoes on Hask, but it's pretty inconsistent because his ship turns so quickly and he's so odd on when he turns around. It seems like there's not really a good time to ever shoot them, right? So it's pretty rough. The quad cannon's basically your best bet. You want to wait till he's going a straight line and then quad cannon. So here we're going to pop our heal. Gives us like 600 health and instantly puts us at full. So we can just avoid all these enemies. I don't even know what you do on the higher difficulties for this. I personally haven't run the higher difficulties, but honestly, I have thought about it a lot, and I might. So we just run over here with the Vanguard, try and get as close to the thing as we can with the hack. And then the rest of this level is just a lot of walking. Try and optimize your routing as best you can, cut the corners, right? Normal speedrun stuff. We hack this thing, go into a bit of a cutscene, and then we just do some more walking through the inside of the Star Destroyer. But Hask is definitely a highlight at the end. Definitely a highlight. Because it can go really well. You can save a load of time if you get good quad cannons and a couple torpedoes. There is a bit of a feel for it. Like it's not like complete consistency. That one I did pretty bad, but it does feel like I can do it better, you know, the more I practice it, but it's always a bit all over the place, right? So it can be frustrating, but I'd say the observatories part's more frustrating and the hats part's more fun to play because it actually feels like you're influencing it. Whereas sometimes the observatory just feels like Del just hates you, so. All right, and as soon as we enter this pod and the cutscene pops up, that'll be the end of Until Ashes, which is the 12th level. I remembered this time. And then we'll be on the last level, which, interestingly, we will play as Kylo Ren, which is, again, kind of odd that we're not playing as the main character for most of this campaign. I think half the levels aren't the main character, which is kind of strange. But it, like I said at the start, it kind of leads to very fun speedrunning because every level feels quite different. So, yeah. So this level, you can definitely save a lot of time here. This is another one of the main inconsistent levels. So you can start walking a little bit faster than you can turn your camera there, so you can kind of turn around or like walk backwards. For this part, you can just walk. We can't dash yet. But as soon as here, we should be able to dodge. We want to use both our dodges. I actually messed up there. Usually you want to hit that frenzy button, which will leap you towards the other enemies. And you can kill them all quite quickly. Then you want to dash as much as you can. Do a jump swing. These enemies... so I'll pause here to explain this. As you get here, they all spawn. And you can do a force pull to instantly kill them all, which will progress to the next part. But if you time it wrong, then one of them will survive and you have to go and kill him. If it's a jetpack trooper, you have to jump. If it's one not near the door, then the door will open way before you get there. So it's like a little bit more precise timing. I definitely mess this up sometimes. It's not... You do have to practice it, but it is consistent. If you do it better, you will save time there, so it's quite nice. If you dash into that door, by the way, that like closed door that we walked into, for some reason you pop up super far to the left and lose time, so just do one dash towards the door and not another dash into the door, so to speak. This part, however, is kind of random. There's going to be another random part after this to end the run, which is pretty fun to end it on a random, right? But so there's a group of enemies here. I actually messed up. I usually do a dash and then a pull to kill this group of enemies on the right because they tend to spread out. This pull I usually get pretty consistently. I messed it up here, obviously, as I'm showcasing it. Pretty ironic, but this pull is a little bit consistent to get. You want to kill all these enemies. We can see one guy's running off to our right, so we'll kill him really quick. And then we have to kill the second group. But they tend to run towards the log. This guy actually ran over here, which he usually doesn't do. They usually run towards the log over there and make you run and chase them, so lose you some time. And then you want to go up the platform. This guy down here, so we want to kill him. You can throw in some... Usually you can want to do jump swings to kill these guys, but as soon as you kill all the enemies, Del will appear here when you get close, and then you have to follow him. You don't want to walk too far into these crystals because you can actually get stuck in them and then not break them when you swing. So you want to stay a little bit farther back from them and swing twice, and then they'll both break. And then you want to... this part's pretty consistent. This part's just a little bit of movement optimization. You just want to take a pretty direct dash route. You can do a jump swing, so when your jump is faster. The Jedi movement's honestly quite fun, both Luke and Kylo. And then as soon as these blue guys appear, you can reset from checkpoint, which will skip a large chunk of this, like, it's like 20 seconds for some reason, of running to this next objective. For some reason, they put this checkpoint right inside. So usually you run inside this cave, you run down like another one of those rock paths, and then you get in here, but we can just instantly skip to it. And then we load into the final segment, which is, I usually just call this Vardos and Endor for the other one. These two RNG segments. So this is a large group of enemies. There's 4 here that he spawns right as he pulls his fist back there. Usually you can do a jump swing, kill all 4 of them. That's quite nice to do because it just gets rid of 4. And then usually you just want to, because there's so many enemies in this area and they're fighting each other, it's not easy for you to manipulate them and know where they're going to be. So this part is honestly just on the fly, kind of adapting to where they are. That was honestly quite good. And then as soon as they're all dead, if you miss one and you don't know it, you have to go back. These guys won't spawn, which is pretty rough. I usually force pull those 2 officers on the right, because there'll always be 2 officers on the left, on the right, and then the 3 guys at the top. I kill the 3 guys at the top with 1 swing usually. You can use Frenzy if you miss this pull, for example, and they spread out. You'll leap between them with your Frenzy ability. But if they're all standing quite next to each other, the swing has like an AoE, and you kill them. And then I usually go down and kill this officer, and then kill this one. and then the door will open a little bit before you get to it, which is nice. And then you'll walk into this and you'll do a slow walk. And then as soon as this cutscene appears, that would be time. So there'll be a cutscene where you're looking at Kylo's face. And time. And that is Battlefront 2, honestly. It's a very interesting speedrun. There's a lot of different variants to it. There's a lot of interesting segments. There's some waiting segments here and there, but I honestly don't mind them too much. And it's a nice break every now and then, so you're not fully focusing, because it is an hour and a half or like an hour 45 long run. I'd say in between like hour and 30 and hour and 40 is probably like a good run. I would consider that quite a good run. So, but it's a fun game, man.
Yeah, no, this is a really fun game. And I do like having those like relaxing segments in the middle of runs, just because it's like, especially if you're trying to go for a very competitive time, you don't have to be, going hard for the entire time. You get a little bit of a break here and there. You're not constantly, trying to save frames. Yeah, that can be stressful if you're like constantly, like, especially in longer runs, like the whole thing is very intensive. So those little waiting segments are nice. I agree with that for sure. So I feel like you explained that extremely well. It doesn't seem like there's a large entry, like a large barrier to enter this run. It just kind of feels like it's, you learn exactly what's going on and then you go from there.
No, yeah, for sure. It's really, this was the first game that I ever speedrun personally, and it was really easy to get into. I think for a lot of aspects, being able to just instantly, you can go in here and just practice missions. You can choose, different difficulty. You can load into each mission specifically. It starts you right from the start. The checkpoints are quite forgiving. There's a couple where, like I said, if you reload from them, things will change, which is pretty inconvenient, honestly. But it's not too hard, and the levels aren't long, so you can play through a quick 5 to 10 minute level each time just to get your practice down. And that's definitely how I practice for the full run, like just playing each individual level, practicing the ones that I thought were shaky here and there, that I wasn't doing super well on. But the barrier of entry is very low, for sure. You are very right. And it's a fun game to speedrun. Like, the actual gameplay is pretty engaging and fun. There is those long waiting segments sometimes, like a minute or two here and there, but I like them just over the course of a long run. Like I said, just you relax, you're not fully focusing that time, especially for going for a competitive time, like you said. So.
Yeah, no, I loved playing this game. This game was super fun to play casually. It looks
for sure, yeah.
fun to to speedrun too. It looks, it's got just the right amount of skill, and skill to the actual speedrun, but it still holds a lot of gameplay to it. There's no massive those runs can be fun too, where you just skip every single level. Those can be fun too.
Oh no, yeah, for sure.
This gameplay is fun, and it keeps a lot of it.
Yeah, you don't skip very much of the game, but those little checkpoint skips are kind of fun to do because you're saving so much time when we're playing the game normally. You're skipping these large segments, but you still get to play the game, which is nice. But those runs where you skip the full game, those are super impressive as well. Super impressive and fun for sure.
Do you have any, not specific to this game, although it could be, but do you have any general tips of getting into speedrunning?
I think so, yeah. I think, as cliche as it sounds, I think my biggest tip that I would give people, other than the obvious one, which is pick a game you like, I think everybody knows that one, right? Even though it is pretty important, I chose this game just because I knew I already played it. I'd played the multiplayer. I thought it was quite fun. It's a game that, while it's not specifically near and dear to my heart before I started speedrunning it, I'm a huge fan of the old original Star Wars Battlefront 2. So this having the same name just made me more appealing. And I'm a super Star Wars nerd and fan for sure. So, having that world that I enjoy means that while I speedrun it, it's not super, grating to hear the same voice lines and same dialogue, all that kind of stuff. But besides that tip of just picking a game you like, I think as cliche as it sounds, I think that I would say just do it. I think that if you're interested in speedrunning, you're going to enjoy it. You just need to get into it. I think that people, at least for me personally, I perceived it as having a higher barrier of entry than it was, kind of talked myself out of it occasionally, you know what I mean? But when I actually did it, I enjoyed it a lot. And there really isn't a barrier for entry. Like, I don't think anybody who watches you speedrun is going to tell you that you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? They'll tell you how to do it faster, maybe, you know what I mean? Different strats, but they're not going to say, oh, you're speedrunning wrong. There's no wrong way to speedrun. It's a hobby at the end of the day. It's something you enjoy. You know what I mean? Like, you should enjoy it as much as you can. If you want to speedrun a category nobody else has done, a game nobody else has done, do it. You know what I mean? Don't worry about the leaderboards at the start. Don't worry about learning strats. Don't worry about even setting up a timer. Just do it and have a good time and see how you like it. And if you don't like that game specifically, just drop it. Move on to the next one. You know what I mean? Like, there's no right or wrong way to speedrun. Like, just do it the way that you enjoy it. As long as you're having fun, you're doing it right. So.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first games I speedrun, I still love it as a game, but the speedrun is just... It's not what I'm into. I speedran it for a while, and then I was like, I just don't like this, so I stopped, and I moved on to different games. And then it became fun again. So if you're not enjoying the game, find a new game.
Yeah. I think that I think people also think about the leaderboards too much. I mean, personally, I like the leaderboards. I like that little bit of competitive aspect, trying to get a top time, but I wouldn't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's about having a good time and self-improvement and seeing yourself, get better and get better times. You know what I mean? Who cares if you don't get, world record? You know what I mean? Just, you're supposed to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, so focusing on that too much can definitely ruin the experience for some people, I feel like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, if it's something you enjoy doing, then eventually the time saves will come if you keep doing it. So you don't have to like super worry about, I'm off of world record by like, 30 seconds or something or whatever. Like that'll come the more you play it, because the more you practice it, the better you will get.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I don't really have a lot of questions about anything I saw. Is there anything else you want to touch on or talk about?
Actually, so one thing I will say is that a couple things about, maybe a reason to speedrun this game is one, the individual levels specifically, like running just like Cleaner specifically. If you thought Cleaner looked a lot of fun, it is actually pretty fun to just run that specific level. Maybe you thought Royalty was really boring with the Leia waiting segments. You know what I mean? You can just not run that level. You don't have to do the full run. There's a couple different variants of time as well. Like, you can do short 4-minute runs on Cleaner, or you can do longer runs on Battle of Endor, which have more inconsistency. You could just do quick runs with Discoveries, trying to get fast times with Kylo. Also, if there's a DLC actually, which has 3 other missions, and that ends up being about a 30-minute run. There's an extra category where you can just run these 3 levels specifically. I haven't run it personally, but I've definitely considered it. And then there's the whole aspect of the other difficulties where you can't run like past every enemy in the world, and you die quite easily. So there's a lot of variance to how you could speedrun this game. And like I said, like, there's definitely been some people who have really put some time into this game, and huge respect to them before I even started speedrunning it. But it hasn't been run super extensively, you know what I mean? So there's still new stuff to find, you know what I mean? Like, figuring out how certain skips work a lot more consistently, or new skips entirely, skipping dialogue or skipping objectives, you know what I mean? Maybe there's a new point you can restart from checkpoint, because while it's been run like an okay amount, don't get me wrong, but there's still stuff to find for sure, like, definitely. So,
yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of games like that.
Yeah, I think that's a fun thing for me too. Like, some people, like, if you just want to find stuff for sure, like, do it. You know what I mean? Like people, I would love to see like new skips in this game. Like, somebody posts about like, oh, I found this cool thing you can do. You know what I mean? Like the shoulder charge thing I mentioned. Like, honestly, I literally just started doing that like a week ago. Like, no joke. Somebody talked about it in chat, because I've been running the game recently, because I plan to go for some more individual level runs, and somebody posted in my chat like, oh, you can shoulder charge glitch in multiplayer, you know what I mean? I wonder if you could do it in single player. And I started doing it. I was like, wow, that's an interesting optimization, you know what I mean? That goes into the run, where you could save like maybe 5 to 10 seconds if you do it really well. You know what I mean? Like, so it's really cool, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. If you want to kind of get into speedrunning or, speedrunning adjacent stuff, but you don't want to do full runs, you can always just try to find those optimizations, try to find those skips and stuff. There are several different games I run where all of the skips or most of the skips, the tricks, like all of the time saves come from people who don't run the game. They just are glitch hunters.
No, yeah, that stuff is super cool, honestly. And I can super see the appeal. Like finding new strats or seeing little glitches and like taking advantage of them is super satisfying. You know what I mean? Seeing that time save, even if you're not the one taking advantage of it in runs, because that's not your thing, seeing other people do it would be super satisfying to see. Like, so for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in, this game and speedrunning it, but maybe not doing the runs yourself, so you could always look for tech as well if you want. There's so many different things you can do to contribute to the speedrun as well, besides just speedrunning. So whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if there'd be too many questions, but if anybody does have any questions about the run or anything, you can always ask in chat. I'm open to answer any questions before we end, but I'm not sure how many questions there will be, but I'm open to any if there is any.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing too many during the run. You did a great job explaining, so
thank you. That's very flattering. I try my best. I know one thing I was worried about is there's a lot of like little things, so I didn't want to jump from topic to topic a little bit, but I tried my best. I tried my best not to rush it too much or jump around too much.
Sure.
So hopefully I explained everything well.
Now, since this will be going up on YouTube, if anybody watching this later has questions, there is a Discord. They can go there and ask.
Yeah, you can
like any
go.
Questions they have?
Yeah, you can go in the Discord. You can at me. You can ask me on Twitter, Twitch, whatever you want. Anything you want. You can message me. I'll try and answer questions as best I can, for sure. Because I would super be excited to see new people run this game. Just like the idea of seeing other people run it and learn it would be real cool.
Got somebody asking, how did you learn to deal with Dell?
The observatory part, honestly, I would really love if somebody figured out, like, jokes aside, I would like if somebody actually figured out how exactly that works. Because, like I said, like, the actual going to the cave and the earthquake strat, like, it's so convoluted, but it seems to make it more consistent. So it's the strategy I have, but sometimes it just doesn't seem to work all the time. So jokes aside, that's my best strat, just from practicing it over and over and trying new things. But in terms of how I learned to deal with how frustrating it is, I'm still not. I've definitely cursed his name during runs. Like, I've definitely just hated on him as he's working and just getting annoyed by bugs for no reason, for sure. So.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say before we close out? Any shout outs or anything? And then if another question comes up, we can, look at that after.
No, I don't really think so, honestly. I don't think so. I mean, shout out to you guys and the greater community of speedrunning, honestly. It's a super honor to be part of anything GDQ related and to, show my game. It's been really fun. I was super excited to be here, honestly. It was cool. Thank you for the invite, for sure.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for coming on. I say this every episode, but what I love about this show is, getting people who are very passionate about their game on and having them share their passion and share their game with people, because, I love speedrunning and I want to see it grow. And part of why I love speedrunning is because there are people who are so passionate and so, welcoming and be like, hey, I love this game, I love playing it. Here, play it, and it's a lot of, sure, there are, there's competition, going for first and everything, but there's also just the you know, hey, I found this cool trick, you know, and then somebody else is like, oh, hey, maybe we could do this, you know, and working on it as a community to bring times down and stuff like that. Like that is what I love about speedrunning. So thank you so much for, you know, being on the show. You did a great job, like I said. So
Thank you. And of course, I was happy to be here for sure. Super excited. So thank you for having me for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't look like we're have any other questions. So I think we can go ahead and wrap up there. Again, thank you so much for being here. With that
very
being
welcome.
said, we are the last show of the night, so this is going to be it. Just a few quick reminders before we go. If you want to follow what Games Done Quick is up to, you can use exclamation links in Twitch chat for all of the GDQ things. And then tomorrow night, we've got a grudge match at 7 p.m. Eastern, so you can tune in for that then. With that being said, we're going to take a quick few-minute break while we look for somebody else to speedrun. So if you wouldn't mind just sticking around so we can raid them afterwards, that would be awesome. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for dropping by.